It is a beautiful Friday afternoon, April 24th, a perfect time for the second fan-requested Friday matchup. Anthony K. requests Richard Jones versus Patrick Moore. Now, if you'll recall, the very first matchup we had this morning, the first fan-requested matchup, was a young Ronnie Coleman versus Breon Ansley. Now, I'm not telling you guys which matches to put where, but a young Ronnie Coleman versus Patrick Moore would have been crisp. And Richard Jones versus Breon Ansley. I mean, Richard Jones, guys, he was under 200 pounds. He wasn't very big. Patrick Moore is just blowing him out of the whatever here in this front double bicep pose. Of course, it's not a straight-on angle, so a little bit unfair for Richard. Here's a backstage picture, I guess you could say, which is unfair, really. They're camera angles perfect and things of that nature, but still, it would be very difficult for Richard ever to touch Patrick Moore, in this pose at least, and I think that would be maybe even doubly so for the front lat spread. Unfortunately, I don't have a straight-on shot of Richard Jones in hardly any of the shots. There was a couple of them that were better shape, but they didn't have all the mandatory shots, and it's a shame for Richard because this was at the Olympia, his very first Olympia, his only Olympia, his debut and his final showing, and he did not hit his peak at all, and those are pretty much the only shots that you have of his 8 mandatories, so it's pretty unfair. But either way, I think it is safe to say even if Richard was in his prime, he would never touch Patrick Moore in this pose. It's just a bigger, maybe better athlete. And even if he's not better, he's bigger. And when all things are equal, you know the rest of the story. Side chest. Again, it was a side angle for Richard. But we do have another one here. And that's still, guys, it's going to be hard. Like I said, bigger is always better when everything is equal. And both guys do look good here, don't get me wrong. Richard Jones is a fantastic athlete. Looks like Sean Ray in many ways. But it is a it's a photo shoot. The camera angles are all perfect. Things of that nature. And still, he is not beating Patrick Moore. Side tricep. Don't go by this angle. I don't know why I keep showing these ones from the Mr. Olympia version of Richard. Because it's an onstage, I guess. I like to use onstage pictures. Here's from the photo shoot backstage again. And you can plainly see Richard Jones is a perfect structure for bodybuilding. I mean, he could have been a 212er, maybe. He was under 200 pounds, though, so hard to say. He could have been a men's classic physique. Could have been going against Breon Ansley. Hint, hint. Either way, Patrick Moore, still too big. Too big for poor Richard Jones. Let's have a look at the back developments. Maybe Richard could fetch some points here. And he does have a good back. Don't get me wrong. And this is a bad angle. And we'll bring another one of these up. I know it might be annoying to you for me switching back and forth. But I like to use the onstage ones if I have them. And this is a straight-on shot. Look at the size of the traps of Richard Jones. Not only that, but those lower lat insertions. Could they be suspect? Could there be some enhancements in there? That's probably just thick lower back muscles. Either way, Patrick Moore, pretty unbeatable in the rear lat spread. Rear double bicep. Now, this was one picture that I did find on stage of Richard Jones, and he looks fantastic. He had a rear double bicep from hell, let's face it. He would probably beat Patrick Moore. I think it's a more muscle-bound pose. I mean, he is smaller, so you have to keep that in mind. So I think I would go ahead and give 1 point at least to Richard Jones in this matchup. The ab and thigh. Now, this is one pose that Richard may get Patrick Moore in if he was in a little bit better shape. And like I said, he was not in his prime here. You have to keep in mind, Richard looks exactly like Sean Ray. And what was Sean Ray's best pose? The ab and thigh. And actually, let's bring up a picture of Sean Ray. And there is a little tidbit of information that you guys probably didn't know. We all know Richard is a Sean Ray lookalike, but there is another little characteristic that these two have in common. If you'll direct your eyes towards the little arrows there, you'll notice that both of these gentlemen are number 8. And that's all I was talking about. Anyway, we can thank Dexter Jackson for that one. I dig this one up here. And you can't see his thigh, unfortunately, and it is an ab and thigh for Richard Jones. But when you look at his abs and that V-taper, I think I'm going to go ahead and give him another gift here. I'm going to give him the ab and thigh. But that's a little bit of a stretch. I mean, Patrick Moore, you know he has a nice striated thigh. And look at his abs. They're good, too. They're good, too. But still, there's no way that Richard can win this match. So I'm going to give him the rear double by and the ab and thigh. From the rear double by to the ab and thigh. Did you ever wonder why Patrick Moore was so tall? Because both of his parents were probably fairly tall, or one of them was really tall and the other one was average. Look at this version of Richard Jones, and you could see that I was not just boasting for him. This was an awesome version here. He was 10 times larger. Look at the size of him, and look at the lack of size of his little bean head. That's one way you can tell the difference of the sizes of these versions of these bodybuilders. Sometimes their heads look little. Other times they have big heads. It's funny. Either way, Patrick Moore, still. Hard, very hard for Richard Jones to catch Patrick Moore sleeping. Patrick Moore does not sleep on stage, especially here at the 2019 I was going to say 2020 Mr. Olympia, the 2019 Mr. Olympia event. So there's your fan-requested Friday matchup. Your second one of the day. There's still one more, guys. Patrick Moore wins this one. Easy, hands down. But Richard Jones, he was a good athlete. A Sean Ray look-alike. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Hit a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Have a great day.